Okay, we are live, and direct and live. Yay, we are back. We are back.
Been a long time coming, but we haven't forgotten about each and every one of you.
No, we have not forgotten about them, especially the ones who keep on messaging and asking what the hell going on. So we are back. We're back. We are the Naked Morning Podcast. Many of you have been following us in Instagram land, and we have been letting you know that we are um, transporting ourselves to YouTube land. And so we are rekindling our YouTube space as we kick off in this more year, right? It's more year, not relegating ourselves to new year cliches.
Yes.
So happy more year to you, Dr. Kat. How are you?
More year to you, Dr. Carey. I am wonderful, wonderful. And
Yes.
so for those of you listening, we decided to say happy more year because, when there's a new year, we're not going to magically become a new person, right? Even with the resolutions and how hard we want to reach our goals, we want to become more of what we really want to be in our lives. So more abundance,
Yeah.
more peace, more wellness, more harmony, more whatever that is for you. So think about that within your life. What do you want more of as we dive into our topic of well-being and relationships, which is always a hot
Yes. Always, it always is a hot topic. My
topic.
goodness, I tell you, the relationship series that we did was fire, and so we're bringing it back at the top of the year. So we're welcoming everybody back to the space, and for folks who are new to us, we will just do a quick kind of introduction and let you know because some people are wondering, about the name, like what does Naked Morning mean, and who are these two women, and all this kind of jazz. So, Dr. Kat, would you like to formally introduce yourself? What are you a doctor of?
Right. All right. So I am by training a board certified family medicine physician. And I am also a holistic health and wellness transformation specialist, i.e., coach, right? And I transitioned into that space last year so that I could really focus on guiding those who are struggling with their health, especially if they have a chronic illness. They just feel lost, they feel limited, they don't know what next moves to take in order to thrive within their body so that they can thrive within their business, within their relationships, with other aspects of their lives. So that is what I am actually doing right now. I'm also a speaker. I'm writing my first book and so many other things. But yeah, that's just a little bit about myself.
Just a little bit, yeah.
A little bit from Jamaica.
Oh,
Yes.
God. And yes, I'm from Jamaica. So for me, my name is Dr. Carrie Ann Peart, and I am actually a doctor of international psychology. So I'm in the behavioral science side of things. I also practice in the space of public health, specifically global health communications and health education components. So I have married both of my arenas of public health and psychology together to do the work that I'm doing. And I currently consult and coach in the space of diversity, equity, and inclusion, particularly coaching individuals who are going through traumatic, toxic, hostile, unsafe work experiences or workspaces, however you want to term it. So that is the work that I do. And you guys are probably on our IG, so you can reach out to us if you have any questions. About connecting with us for coaching or consulting. We are more than happy to answer questions and connect and support people in their spaces and places. So that is a little bit about us. So I will jump in and also remind folks about what Naked Morning is. So we are um, a duo of friends. We went to college together, so we go back from Woy Woy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we came together last year. It's
Mm-hmm.
last year, right? Okay.
Yep.
Last year, just literally at a kitchen table discussing the things, talking about all the things that Caribbean women go through and Caribbean people go through as they have to navigate foreign lands, foreign spaces.
Literally, it was a year ago today, just about.
Right. Oh God.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a year, and the podcast will be a year come March, right? Because we started the podcast
Yes.
in March.
Yeah.
So, wow, my
I
gosh.
know.
So we decided to act on it, act on the conversations that we were having, and we took, inspired action
Mhm.
and decided to just jump on Instagram and start chatting. And in the chatting, we connected with a number of friends of ours, family, and other Caribbean individuals who are living either back home in the region, still in the region, or abroad, and supporting each other in what it means to be Caribbean or Carib, as I like to say, um, in the spaces we occupy, and really holding steadfast to our authentic identities. So this is a space to hold for authentic Caribbean identities and all the things that we do as Caribs. So that is what we're about. That is what
Yes.
we're about.
And hence the name Naked Morning. Naked just means that we want to be as authentic as possible when we show up in these spaces, when we show up in life. And initially, we had the idea of doing it on a Sunday morning, so that's how the morning came up. But we can talk about these things at any time of day. So, right?
Yep.
And the other part too is that we don't hold these conversations enough within our Carib space or our Afro-Caribbean space. And so that's another thing that came up when we had this initial idea, is that we need to talk about these things more, right? We're having these experiences, but sometimes we feel alone in these experiences when we're going through very similar things. We're just not connecting and talking about these things together. And there's no reason why we should be doing these things by ourselves if we don't have to. I believe in community. Dr. Carey believes in community as well, supportive and safe. Let me be very clear, a supportive and safe community. And so we
Yes.
really wanted to create this platform in order to do that, getting people together as a community, talking about issues that are very important to us and are important to our overall well-being. So I just wanted to add on that piece.
Of course. Necessary to state that. So we are here. We for those who are watching, please, communicate with us in the chat. We are not just going to be sitting here staring at each other on the screen. We'd love to get questions or thoughts shared as we dialogue. We'll also be hosting other guests. For those of you who've been following us for a while, we've had guests before in the past, and we will be working on scheduling more guests. Some of them will be returning for the upcoming sessions that we'll have. But of course, you will know about that as you follow us on IG, so you know who is coming up when, type of thing. But we are getting back together and making sure that we are bringing the things to you guys.
Making sure that we are bringing. Yes.
You broke up a little bit, right?
So we have an idea.
Say that
can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I was just saying to, for those listening, just put where you're hailing from in the chat so that we can know where you are.
Yes, that would be nice. All right. So
ready?
So ready.
Have popcorn. Yeah.
Let's get into it, because I think I told you I support a friend of mine, two friends of mine, both of them, two gentlemen in Barbados who have a podcast called the Senate Podcast. My dear friend Neil and his dear friend Derek host the Senate Podcast on Tuesdays and Thursdays evenings, which would be 7 p.m. Yeah, 7 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Barbados time. And they talk the things there about what's going on and strictly about men and women's relationships. That's it, right? That's what they talk about, and it's
Mm-hmm.
I find it's such an engaging space to be in,
Mm-hmm.
to hear men talking about relationships. And I will um, pause and disclose that um, I'm a heterosexual woman, and I date men, and so my perspectives are coming from that space. Dr. Cat, would you like to? Sure.
Same,
Okay.
heterosexual, and that's my perspective as well. So, and again, that's important for people to know, right?
Yes.
Yes,
Because
absolutely.
we will say things on here and people might be like, well, that doesn't pertain to me, and how to being so narrow, because we're talking from our lived experiences.
Right.
But all are welcome here, and that is what we're talking about. We want to hear people's perspectives, so
Yes.
let us know in the chat where you're hailing from, and if we say something and you want to question it, by all means question it. We are more than happy to reflect on it and respond.
Yes.
So those gentlemen had a conversation last night that was very entertaining about basically how womanhood, right, is becoming obsolete, right? That women are femininity is like a dying breed.
Wow.
Tango, hey Tango Falks. He's one of our cabinet members from the Senate and in Barbados. Nice to see you. Thank you for joining. Um,
Welcome.
so I thought to myself, well, this is interesting because I have been feeling personally that yeah, there are moments where I wonder now, what is being a woman, right? And then what is being a woman in relationship with a man? And it's like, what is being woman? What is being woman in relationship with a man? And then where is the wellness? Right?
Right.
Where
Yes.
is the wellness in it?
Yes. Right.
Because there's so much dialogue, and you and I talk about this a lot, Dr. Cat, with how for so long women have been in this frame of um, uh, hyper masculinity, but in
Mm-hmm.
the feminine,
Right.
right?
Yes. Yes.
And what that means for the disruptions in relationships and the displacement of true masculine, what I am calling true masculine,
Right.
as
Yeah.
in male born masculine identity, in that sense. And so, yeah, so based on kind of the conversations I've had in the space there, and based on conversations I've had with other girlfriends of mine, and even when you and I were talking the other day about relationships, like what the hell are relationships anymore?
Yeah.
I was
Yes.
like, yo, we need to talk about this. Um,
Absolutely.
because so many people feel so displaced and so lost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that, we're carrying around a lot of trauma.
Mhm. Oh no, you froze.
I know. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. I was saying that I think a part of that issue is because we carry around a lot of baggage and trauma,
Yeah.
and we carry that into the relationships that we have, whether it's a work relationship or whether it's the relationship with a significant other, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're not aware, or we haven't identified that that is what's going on, and that's why we're having problems, or we're not able to understand what our roles are. That's a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's that figuring out that piece of the
Yeah.
puzzle within that bigger puzzle
Right.
is
Right.
very important.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I swear the universe has a sense of humor when it comes to my life. This morning,
Hmm.
I got a text from an ex of mine, and I'm like, oh, he's still alive. Praise God. He's still alive. Because, there are periods in time, I don't care how X and X may be,
Right.
There are periods in time you have some concerns. Like, I wonder if he or she is okay. I hope they're okay, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly he's okay, which is great. But the message he sent was a TikTok about just what you said, how people's traumas trigger the partner's traumas in relationship,
Mm-hmm.
and how that burdens the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And what is curious is that uh, the majority of the time, it's quite, people aren't necessarily, like you say, in tune with the fact that they've even been traumatized.
Right.
Right. So that brings up the next question. So what is trauma?
Right.
And then when you don't acknowledge the frustrations or upsets and that kind of thing, and then you are in a relationship with somebody, and then somebody they do or say something, right, that then sets you off. Sometimes you're set off and you don't even realize that it's because of something that has happened to you before.
Right.
So it's such a curious place to be in, and that is why we wanted to discuss this whole concept of well-being in relationships, or well-being of relationships, because a lot of times we're coming to relationship spaces expecting to just things to just work out. Right? We just expect, like, it will just sort itself out. The person just going to have to take me as I am, kind of thing.
Yes. And also expecting not only the person to take you as you are, but expecting specific things from your partner that the partner knows nothing about.
Nothing about. Nothing about.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh
and
my
with
God.
expectation comes disappointment.
Right. And this is where, again, I always say in all the conversations I have with folks, friends and family, are like communicate. Say what your frustrations are. Say what your dislikes are. Say what feels good sounds. Say it all as much as you safely can. Because I understand that some of us are in relationships that are not safe. Too many people believing in fantasy. Absolutely. That's the next thing. These storybook concepts of relationships.
Disney movie.
Disney movie. Lord, Disney has done
conversation
things. Poor Disney. But I hear that. So here's the next argument, right? That communication is not easy. And then it makes me wonder, then how the heck you want to have a relationship? You think relationship is easy without communication?
That's the key. Communication is key.
Right. So I always wonder to myself about that. And what I was told recently is, and part of some of the other conversations I've had, is that communication has been gendered, and that it's relegated to women, because women are taught to speak up and taught to show emotion, express emotion, communicate emotion.
Yeah.
And boys becoming men are not.
That's a big part of it.
And I'm saying to myself, then how are we supposed to survive in these relationships?
Exactly. But and then the other thing too is maybe that's what we were taught when we were smaller, but we don't have to repeat history into the present.
Correct. And that is why I keep saying social conditioning is a very strong drug.
Yes.
Because a lot of people default to, well, I was never taught that, and so therefore tough cookies, this is just who I am.
But they don't want to take responsibility.
Self-accountability, we talk about this all the time. It's like you want this, but you don't want to do the work to lead up to this.
Right.
That don't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
Make sense.
No.
Right. So some of these things, I think, are just so curious. I have more questions than anything when it comes to kind of how people are navigating relationships and how people are perceiving well-being for relationships, because a lot of folks think well, you know, in Neil and Derek always say, not all, not all, but a lot of folks think that
Mm-hmm.
when you are in a situation of relationship, like you said, the other person should just know automatically what to do,
Where we
right?
get that from? I
And
don't know.
these expectations lead
Mm-hmm.
to disappointments.
Yeah.
And I think it is very important that people figure out how to navigate successfully. So I think the issue is that, sorry, a comment says, I think the issue is that men and women deal with emotions differently. Absolutely. And then I'm glad you raised that point, Tango, because one of the things that it brings to mind is the fact that there is no well-being. You can't be well in relationship if you are not able to process your emotions, both men and women.
Mm-hmm.
So if a man processes by retreating, which is kind of often the case, right? Men oftentimes kind of just go off on a one away. And
Mm-hmm.
God knows how long that one away may be.
Right?
So,
Very true.
some men, and I think that is also part of the frustration, is that there are some
True.
men who take, they'll take a 5 minute, 10 minute, 25 minute step away and come back and discuss. Some men literally just walk, gone, left the family and gone,
Mm-hmm.
like gone, and formulate a whole nother family somewhere else and never resolve the issue in the first household. And I'm like, so where is so that means that relationship was just being, it was a being relationship. It was never a well
Right.
to begin with. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So thinking through some of the comments, we both need to be open and honest, and many of us cannot deal with honesty.
Mm-hmm.
We're a bit of a slow burn when it comes to emotion. And are you speaking, Tango, from the male perspective? Am I understanding that correctly? I don't want to assume here.
True.
You know, um,
And
and
again, that comes from, I think, based on how we've grown up, right? How you
right,
said things are genderized, so to speak. It goes
right,
back to that, he said,
right.
from a male's
Yeah,
perspective.
different point of view. I think it's rough, and given that we're talking about the Caribbean context, what we find a lot of are these disparate families. Are these, man have a family here, he has a family there, he has a family there, and never comes to term that single man can have 6 children, right? Three
Mm-hmm.
baby mothers, 6 children, and he never comes to terms with what is actually going on with him.
Exactly. Exactly. It's almost like he's running away from himself and the situation. That's what it looks like from a female, my perspective.
Yeah, yeah. And then what does that then mean for the ways in which the women who are interacting with him now see him or value him? And this is now where the argument comes up when you hear the labels, Dottie, my favorite one, Dottie John Crow. Mana Dottie John Crow, right? Um, Old dog, right? And Gallus is another popular term that we
Mm-hmm.
use in the region. And I know we've glamorized Gallus to the point now where one of our companies, from one of our, one of the companies that represents um, our country specifically, literally has it written on a shirt, like on a sweatshirt. And I'm like,
Right.
watch out, how many people go buy that shirt now because them feel for
Exactly.
them are Gallus.
Yeah. Yeah. And the
Um,
same thing within the music industry, right?
yes, absolutely, absolutely.
So it's something that's promoted that it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, it is perpetuated because it's planted up here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we can't stop that. We can't even begin to stop that cycle if we don't look at all of those areas
Right.
where it's being promoted.
Where it's being promoted. So this brings up, so here's the other part I wanted to inject into this. So we've gone through, kind of what is a relationship? How can you have a relationship without even having communication at its core?
Right.
How can you have a relationship without even understanding each other's kind of perspectives on communication and values and expectations,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Respectfully. Mm-hmm.
And then understanding that within the context of our Caribbean identity, that there is a gendered angle
Mm-hmm.
towards communication, that
Mm-hmm.
it's normalized as a priority of the woman and not the priority of the man, based on socialization. Then we have given those stereotypes and the perpetuation of those stereotypes, these broken homes, family here, family there, one father having
Mm-hmm.
six, 8 children type of thing, with all these different women. Then comes the other part about the going back to the emotional component of men. And I'm a big advocate for this, the mental wellness of our men.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a lot of frustration that I see when it comes to men and women dealing with each other, and women not knowing how to manage. How should I manage my partner's mental health?
Right.
Especially if he is not taking accountability for it.
Hmm. Big problems. Big problems.
So,
And then another layer to that too is if there are children involved,
oh God, oh gosh, absolutely.
you know.
And I wonder how people feel about, I don't know how many men are on here, but I do wonder how they navigate their mental health. Like, I honestly, like, I really would like to know if the men on here actually take their emotional and mental health into account when they are going into relationships or when they're in relationships. And let me add this caveat, because some of them are going to say, of course, I'm not talking about mental health in terms of her, not your partner, not nagging you or triggering you and, giving you peace and peace. What I have learned is men just want peace, as in piece of sex, and PEACE, peace as in calm. So, great, we're clear on that. But I want to know if in your expectation and desire as a man for peace and peace, are you wholly taking into account your core mental and emotional safety? Do you honestly feel emotionally and mentally healthy and well in your relationships with your partner? And I don't think we allow space for them to assess that very often.
Mm, yeah. Is that introspective conversation going
Mm-hmm.
on?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's needed from the men, it's needed for women as well, right?
Right. Absolutely.
But as you say, we don't hit because we're not men. We don't know, we don't hear it enough. We're not having that conversation, and maybe
Right.
that's something that we think about is again having a discussion with a panel of men, talk about this in more detail. I think
Oh
that would
yeah.
be great.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Could probably have Tango come on the show and talk about it. He's a consistent attendee on the other podcast, and he and I sometimes go back and forth in chats and talk about this. But I'm curious to find out how, especially now, right, in this day and age, as he's saying, it depends on what you mean as well about mental and emotional health, right?
Mhm.
I think there are so many ways that we can define it, given the degrees of, how should I put this? Given the many avenues that are now promoted as mental health and well-being avenues for men and women, to really start feeling into and thinking through what emotional support looks like for them and dealing with trauma. Because what I mean is, are you aware of traumas that you may be carrying around as a man that you are not addressing, and just feel like you can keep suppressing it or just fling it to the back burner, right? He says, I can only speak for me. I've had to shield, myself from my life, and even in my marriage, I find it very difficult to bring my shields down. Wow.
And we've spoken about this before, Carrie, in terms of,
Mm.
men not feeling safe within a relationship to really express themselves how they really want to.
Yeah.
Which is what I'm gathering from what Tango is saying.
Yeah. So then it brings a question to me of, other than peace and peace, right? What is it? Like, are we even capable of defining how men want to be emotionally and mentally safe in their partnerships with women? I wonder if there's even a way to say what the criteria would be, particularly for us as Caribbean people. Because we we don't talk about these things. We don't talk about your mental and emotional health. Like, what? No.
Right.
Just go take a drink at the bar, go wind up on a girl, and you're good. So it provokes that kind of thought. Like, how do you get to the point in relationship with someone? And I'm even wondering about even my past relationships, because whenever I raised mental health stuff or emotional safety pieces with my ex, it was a total shutdown. Like,
Retreat. Right. Yeah.
Not going there. But it was a serious thing, and it contributed to why I was like, yo, we can't go any further, because if I cannot connect with you emotionally, if I can't say to you, this is my frustration and here is why I'm frustrated.
Right.
But partially because of things I've done, I'll take full account, right? There are things that I did in a relationship that of course pissed him off and agitated myself in return. But then there are also things that I recognize, and I said, when you do this, using the I statements, I feel, I feel,
right.
like I feel a bumbleclot way when you do this.
Right. Yeah. But then maybe you're able to communicate how you're feeling, and he isn't.
And that's the thing. I think men have fooled themselves or have undermined their ability to actually communicate. I believe that they can communicate in certain circumstances better than we can. Right? I know Tango will say, we talk about word salads a lot. Like, if you ask a woman a question like, is the sky blue? She will tell you, well, yes, the sky is blue because, and go into a whole heap of things. If you ask the guy, is the sky blue? Yes.
Yes. Done. Straight to the point.
Straight to the point.
No elaboration.
And my thing, what I have come to learn is that a lot of women feel that men should communicate the way they as a woman communicate. And that's not how it works.
No.
That's not how it works.
Yeah.
And there are moments, I have another friend of mine, whenever I ask him questions, he like that. And I'm like, oh, Lord. You couldn't kind of smooth that out for me? Yeah.
Right. But that's such an important point that you bring up, is that as women, we can't expect our male counterparts to communicate in the same way and express themselves in the same way that we do. Yeah. And a part of that is that recognition and that the acceptance of that fact.
Yes. And I think that is where again our relationships, and we're talking from Caribbean perspective because that's what this space is about, and those are the realities that we have. Um, many Caribbean women do a disservice in their relationship because of that expectation. That
Back to expectation again.
yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
that my male partner is supposed to always tell me how he feels, and he's supposed to say it like this because this is how I say it and do it.
Or my male counterpart does not understand me.
Right.
Maybe because we haven't communicated how we're feeling
Right.
and exactly and what
Right.
we're thinking.
Right. So I think those are but I think this is what we're figuring out, that it comes back to these expectations. The unhealthy relationships have unrealistic expectations.
Mm-hmm.
I think is what we're pretty much summing up. That would make
Absolutely.
sense. Would I be fair in saying that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. I think we have a comment from Tango. Part of the problem is from childhood. During school, the balance has always been on the side of women as perceived by men, but nowadays men are talking to their children and sharpening the iron of heel. Even today, that happened with my wife.
Oh wow. Wow, wow, wow. Okay. I agree. I agree. What is very interesting to see um is the role that fathers are taking with their children,
Mm-hmm.
and the shifting the dynamic.
Yes.
Yeah. And I would go as far as saying that it's a healthy shift that
Mm-hmm.
is occurring.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely more obvious now than, say, 1 or 2 decades ago, for sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
for sure. Um, sharpening the iron of healing. Yeah, got you. Yeah, I think it is very important for men to define what emotional and mental health sounds like. I always go by three things
Mm-hmm.
in my coaching and practice of consulting. I go by three things. What does it sound like for you? What does it feel like for you? And what does it look like for you? Right? And I think in the midst of dating, for those folks who are brave enough to be out here dating, it's a whole nother thing. Asking the person that you're engaging, what does emotional and mental well-being look, sound, and feel like for you when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to partnership?
Yes.
And I'm sure people will be like, okay, it was nice to meet you. We will never have another date again.
Especially if that's the first date question.
That's the first date. You're like, yeah, no, we're not doing this anymore. I don't want to talk to you.
Oh
But
gosh.
that's gonna be my thing moving forward. Like, and then of course I can, pull the excuse of, well, I'm a psychologist, so I need to know. We can't go any further until you answer these three questions. Oh my
But
God.
there are very important questions to ask and questions that we need to ask for our own selves too,
Yes.
right? We need to understand that for ourselves so that we can ask that question and communicate those answers for
Yeah.
ourselves with that other person as well. So
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
I was talking to a matchmaker. She's a friend. I'm not having a matchmaker or anything.
I know what you said, girl. You never tell me this. I want you the things. I want you the things.
Yeah, and she was saying it goes back to the communication and the expectation that we're talking about. And it's
Yeah.
something I never thought about before, but it makes complete sense is that, figure out what your love language is.
Mm-hmm.
And make sure that you communicate that love language with your partner, understand what your partner's love language is,
Right.
and for that, of course, partner to communicate that with you.
Right.
Because it goes back to the expectation, because you might have the love language of touch, right? But if your partner doesn't know that and you don't communicate that with your partner, you may be upset if your partner doesn't do certain things, while your partner's love language might be something else, such as giving.
Right. I laughing because I can legit like see like
an argument based off
argument based on like, where you touch me for? Bad man that I touch up. Just see.
But it's true.
Some of our Jamaican men can be rough, yo. You know, it's like, whoop. Okay, all right.
Yeah, so it's about knowing and respecting that love language and making sure that that's communicated within that relationship.
Right. Yeah.
So like, yeah, that makes complete sense, but never thought of it that way.
It makes complete sense. And then because I am who I am, I go even one step further. And because I'm thinking of my love languages right now too. Because for me, in order to have my well-being held in my relationship, I lead with my love languages, right? I often off the bat will say very early out, not necessarily the first date, but early out within the first 3 months, that my love languages are, for me, touch is a big one. Words of affirmation, and then acts of service. I'm not so big on gifts. I'm not big on gifts. And for me, touch is a big one. I believe touch is my number one because of how I was raised. My mother was a very affectionate person, and touching was, how mothers are. Well, actually, not all mothers, not all.
Right. You can speak from your personal experience.
Right. My mother was one who literally, as she's touching you and calming you down, she's also giving you words of affirmation. So that's how it is for me. And the acts of service is third. And I recognize something very important, that I have attracted men, not all my partners, but and it's not like I date a whole heap. I literally have like 5 ex-boyfriends. But 2 of them have had what I would say severe mother wounds. Their traumas in their childhood based on relationships with their mothers. And dating me is actually, it's a double-edged sword. It's like soothing, but also triggering is what I've learned. Yeah. Girl, I tell you. It's like, woo. So being mindful of, yes, I agree wholeheartedly to know the love languages, and then even kind of understanding the rationale.
Yes, behind. Yeah.
If your partner cannot receive that based on their rationale due to a trauma, yeah,
there's a problem. Yeah.
Well-being can be handled.
Yeah.
You want to read that other comment?
Sure. As a father, I'm trying to teach my children communication skills, and even as one is going into teenage years, I'm becoming more insistent that they learn to avoid pitfalls.
Tanga, we're going to have you on when we're doing the parenting conversation. I'm telling you right now.
You don't have a choice, Tanga.
You have a choice, Tanga. Oh my God.
It's true. Yeah. Teaching these children how to communicate.
Yeah.
And breaking the cycle of not communicating effectively and healthily.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially for our boys. I really think, okay, great. We got that already. No problem. Fantastic. I will talk to you about the dates. Especially for our boys, I really believe that fathers now have a really huge opportunity, if they have sons, to really shift the gendered socialization of our boys. um, it's a critical time.
Mhm.
I feel, having worked with children, and I'm sure in your practice, having seen families with children, and yeah,
Yes.
so I think it's a critical time right now for us to pay attention to how we are navigating things with our boys,
Mhm.
in terms of communication.
Yes, absolutely. And setting the example, not only just teaching them,
Yes,
telling them, but teaching them by showing them.
yes,
That's
yes,
how kids learn. They see
absolutely, absolutely.
sponges, they see everything, they feel the energy.
As you say that, you know
Segue.
how my mind works, right? You know how my mind works. The people that are watching this will come to learn how my mind works, because your touch. You see, this is why it's so great. We didn't plan a thing, but yet you are, some of the notes I had taken last week, like touch on this, touch on this, touch on this. You're already touching on this. This is so great.
So aligned we are.
Flow,
Flow.
zoom. So one of the things that came to mind is, let me see how, is the way that we can design our relationships, right? So if we are talking about like raising children and role modeling certain things,
Mhm.
and even in our relationships, there are aspects of role modeling
Mhm.
I believe we should do for each other. Again, going back to the fact that if well being for you looks like, sounds like, feels like these things, whatever those things may be, then you need to model that for your partner in order for them to understand how to be well with you in relationship. And then in turn, it will allow them to kind of gauge what works for them, to
Mhm.
model for you for you to be able to reciprocate, type of thing, right? The 50-50. And um that is something I also don't think we give enough space for.
Yeah.
We don't give enough space for defining or showing how we want to be nurtured.
Mm. Yeah.
You know?
I agree with that.
Yeah. I think we're very quick to where you work, how much you earn, what your house look like, what your car look like,
External.
or you wear that good cologne. Nice. Right? But can I teach you? And can I receive teaching from you
Mhm.
how to nurture in this relationship?
That's huge. We're not asking that question.
I
We
thought
are so distracted
so distracted.
with all the things that you mentioned and more
Yeah. Yeah,
that
yeah,
were,
yeah.
and those are just surface things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying the smell good isn't important, because hygiene is key. Trust me. Listen, I am one of those people who a good up cologne will get me in trouble. Seriously. Right? But behind the good up cologne, I want to know, is this a man who I can sit down and reason with and allow him to teach me something?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I
Because
wonder,
we're ever evolving,
right,
right?
right,
So
right.
we should want our partners, we should want to learn from our partners
Mm-hmm.
and vice versa,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that again, as we're going through this journey of a relationship together,
Right.
we are doing this within the relationship, right?
Night night tango. Yeah, it's late where he is now. It's time for his
Mm,
bedtime.
mm.
Yeah. And I don't think we give enough space for that ever evolving thing. Because I've heard people who are divorced say things like, yeah, we had to, we grew apart. What does that even mean?
Mhm.
What does that? And then did you ever stop to think why it was growing apart versus growing more together?
Exactly. Exactly. And what comes to mind when I hear people say that is maybe they weren't doing the work to stay together,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Right.
Or what they were doing wasn't being intentional to
Intentional.
stay together, right? And yet sometimes you are being intentional about the process and things are not aligned. And
Mm-hmm.
that's okay. But
Mm-hmm.
it's to ask that question.
Mm-hmm.
Ask that question to say, okay, we grew apart. Okay, why? Not to
Why?
just, oh, we grew apart. And that's just that.
Yeah.
Again, really taking that time to think about things deeply
Yeah.
is a big part of it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I just don't know if we give enough, or maybe we give enough space, or we're just not asking the right things. We're not paying attention to the right things.
To be a little bit of both too.
Yeah.
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 Mm-hmm.
So, and I think for where I am, I think I've always been critical. I mean, the same ex who messaged me this morning, I remember some years ago, he had said to me, why you overthink? You overanalyze things. And I'm like, yeah, kind of. I'm like, yeah, I kind of. It's just my nature. Like I have to kind of, like how we say, suss out the thing, like sort out
Mhm.
the thing, figure out what is what and why it's that way.
Right,
Because I'm also trying to figure out where do I belong in a situation,
right.
right?
Yeah,
So I can't just get up and there with you because you want there with me. Like,
right. Has
it's
to be some
like,
sustenance behind it.
right. There has to be something behind it that will keep the intrigue going. Like I will, if I'm with you, is because I know there's something that you can teach me or you can support me in or something like that
Right,
beyond the other things that people are in relationship for,
right.
right?
Yeah.
So so yeah, I'm a little bit critical about a thing or two, because there has to be value add for both of us,
Right. Yeah.
you know.
And what came to mind is that I think in general, that's how women think
Hmm.
versus men. It almost goes back to the one answer for men
Maybe, yeah.
versus the woman who said the sky is blue because right? We go into that explanation
Right.
because we're analyzing in
Mm-hmm.
that case, the color,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So that's just a thought.
Yeah. I think men analyze too. I think, they can be quite analytical, many of them. Um, but they're just very restricted in the way that
Mhm.
they share the
Mhm.
analysis. I'll put it that way.
Follow, follow.
They just kind of like cut it short, type of thing. Like, yeah,
Mhm.
this is what I'm saying, and that's just it.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and for many Caribbean men, that's just how it is. Like some actually don't say anything at all. It's
Very
just all
true.
action. You
Yes.
just see them do things, move away, very little talking. They just act,
Mhm.
right? And there are some that act and will speak on certain things. But I think it's important to say how you function and how you are going to show up in a relationship,
Yes.
so
And
that we,
have that conversation. Sorry to cut you
yeah.
off.
No, no, no. It's fine.
But yeah, having that conversation early
Mm-hmm.
is important so that each person knows where that other person is coming from.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess, just again, because of our culture, is more just watch, just watch, just come along and just watch type of thing versus having the conversations about I'm doing this because
Right.
so. And I think that's also a part of the equation that is frustrating for some women is that you'll see the man do something, but and in your mind you're like, but why did he even do it like that? Because
Yeah.
in your mind it don't make sense. In
Right.
his mind, he's looking 2 or 3 steps ahead.
Mm.
And sometimes it would be nice if they would just simply say, oh my gosh. So yeah, I think it's I don't know. I don't know if it's a matter of asking certain questions while also allowing for certain actions to happen within a particular time frame.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know.
That gentle balance, so to speak.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it is a gentle but also tedious balance because there are some women, it's kind of like, well, he needs to figure this out now because I want to be married by X age and I want to have baby by Y age and all this kind of thing. So then there's also the biological pressure
Right.
that comes into play as another aspect of well-being, because for some women, well-being is being able to bring forth children.
Yep.
Right?
Exactly.
So what do you do then? Like, how does a relationship operate at that point?
Mm-hmm.
Especially if the man doesn't necessarily want to have children.
Right. Again, that's why these conversations need to be had, and
Mm-hmm.
not just to go along with things and wonder,
Right.
hope,
Right.
actually say anything.
And then there's the flip side. What happens if the woman doesn't want to have children with you as the man? You see,
Mm.
not enough women talk about that side, and I'm
Sure.
sure there are many women out here who have children with men that they knew they were
Right.
not wanting to have children with, but for some reason they push that thought out of their mind and land up with children with this man, and now is hell and powder house problems, right? I can just think of so many situations like they're probably like that. It's
Yeah.
really, really unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, really unfortunate. So where is the being well in relationships anymore? Like, are people even considering that? Are people considering the well-being aspect in relationships at all?
Yeah. I don't think that we're doing that enough, if we're doing that at all.
If we're doing it all, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
What is the wellness within this relationship?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what does that mean for you? What does that mean for the other person?
Right. And then how do you continue growing well together? Right?
Exactly.
Because you don't just meet and then as individuals you start growing.
Exactly.
Like that's not how it happens, right?
Right.
It's consistent changes over time, and is this somebody who you can consistently change with in the process? And that is the other frustration I have. Like, I'm open to, well, because, well, for both of us, clearly, because we went through years of schooling, so we clearly are open to change and going and growing and
Mm-hmm.
learning,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just by virtue of the letters at the back of our names.
Right.
It is not to say that there are people out there who are not also open to the same sort of challenges and whatnot. But I'm wondering if it's because it's not celebrated why people don't stick to learning and growing in relationships. It's not really celebrated. People have divorce parties, and when people who, if they're not married, You're dating somebody and you two of you break up, whatever. Oh, girl, a long time you broke up with him, He was so worthless. Da, 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 da. Or my youth, you should have break up with her a long time. She was such a this and that. Celebrate for days about those things, right? When last you hear about somebody having a 40-year wedding anniversary party?
Not very often in comparison to the celebration.
Right. In comparison to the divorce parties and let's go for drinks and have a party after the breakup parties. So I just wonder about that side of things too. People sticking through things. If they had said that things are worth the effort.
Right.
And then there's a caveat of what does worth the effort mean? What were you observing that made you feel that there's something worth the effort?
Right.
Right. Because if the person wasn't open to growth and learning prior to whatever upset, then growth and learning not going to happen after the upset. So don't fool yourself into thinking that they're worth the effort.
Right.
And I don't think many people understand that side of things. Like people will stick to something if they see behavior patterns that prior to the issue that reflected stick-to-itiveness is what we right? That, okay, they followed through on this before, they followed through on that, they took care of this and moved through that. So now we're at this point, there's got to be a way to move through this as well, because the behavior trends up to this point reflect
XYZ.
Right. And we don't talk about that either.
There's a lot we don't talk about.
Yes. Yeah. So there are things that I'm glad that we're doing this topic to start off over the next few sessions, because there are things that we're not talking about, like the desires to grow in relationship, the willingness to learn in relationship, levels of discernment. We're not talking about that either, right? Sexual compatibility. We don't talk about that either. Just think that everybody, if you just deal with and have sex with, and that's not the case.
Yep.
I was watching we'll have a session about this too, but I was watching a whole thing on TV the other day on Netflix about couples going through issues of sexual incompatibility, sexual frustrations, because it wasn't even discussed prior to being married or engaged or whatever, how the other likes to be fulfilled sexually. Oh, you're stucking again. You good now?
There we go.
Okay. You were saying something?
No. I was listening to what you were saying.
Oh, yeah. So I was saying that those conversations are not being had about how people like to be sexually fulfilled. And I feel like when you speak up about that, oh my God, it's such great offense. Like, you don't like the way I have sex with you. Like, calm down. Calm down. What your other girlfriend likes, I may not like.
Right.
It doesn't work for me. Right. And there's this great offense if you talk about that. And I think those are the things that really get us caught in these areas of not trusting each other, not being healthy with each other.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. An hour already? How did that happen?
Well.
All the time.
All the time. So yeah. So all those things, I think we will definitely be touching more on as we have the next session. I think we should probably do the next session around the sexual compatibility one. That might
Yes.
be a fun conversation to have.
Yeah.
Because it's just,
Again, something that we don't talk about, and it's really important too.
yeah. And our music will have you thinking like everybody should just be okay with the sex that they're having, right?
Right.
Talk about all of the music, just all of the music. And I mean, man, I love our dirty dancehall music. I love it. You know, Dexter Daps is a must for me.
Yes.
Right? Spice and all of them too. But the reality is people not measure, like Spice has the whole, I don't know if you've heard Spice's song Tape Measure.
I don't think so.
When we finish, you need to go find tape measure and listen to Spice talk about tape measurement. So there are things that are being said in our music that I think is very misleading and is again setting expectations that are unrealistic, that land us up in these unwell relationships.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah. But again, I'm going to stress the importance of being well and what that means for you within yourself before, or if you're in a relationship, whilst being in a relationship. And you also need to be well in. If you're not well with yourself, how can you be well with somebody else?
Say it again.
If you are not well with yourself, how can you be well with somebody else?
Boy. Just want that to
sink in a bit.
Thinking a little
But
bit.
it is so true, though. It is so true.
Yes.
Especially when, there are, some people who just go from relationship to relationship.
Yes.
Don't take that time between relationships to really assess what happened before and assess what's going on within themselves. And a lot of the times I think that happens because going from one relationship to another is almost a distraction from what's going on.
Yeah.
Within
them. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Absolutely. Yeah. But it is such a true thing. If you're not, again, self-accountability, if you're not doing the things to make sure you are emotionally, physically, mentally well, then when somebody says certain things to you that bother them, and you're upset, like, what?
Right.
Well, that makes sense.
It doesn't. And my mother always says, you carry you with you wherever you go. So if you are unwell, physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, whatever it is, you are carrying that into that relationship that you're going into. So how can you expect a different experience when you're carrying you over there, but you're unwell over here? Something to think about deeply.
Absolutely. And this is what I talk about too when I say people need to do the work, meaning you need to work on yourself for yourself before you engage with anybody else in any capacity, really. Right? Whether it be a work relationship and you're functioning with colleagues and whatnot, or with your family members, or with your intimate partner. It comes back to self-accountability and the communication pieces for real. So
yeah.
Great.
Another wonderful conversation.
We will have our next one. We need to schedule the next one based on how your schedule is. I think we can probably do next week. I'm not sure, but you will let me know.
Yes. Next week is my birthday.
All right, it's your birthday. Well, happy early birthday. So we should really do one. And we should have the next conversation.
Make it really spicy.
Find it up. Oh my gosh. I tell you.
Yeah, man, we'll figure it out. I'll be out of town, so we'll figure it out.
Right. Yeah. So we'll see how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
All righty. Well, good deal. This was good as always.
Yes.
So we will catch up and we will connect with folks. And folks, you can follow us on Instagram at Naked Morning
Mm-hmm.
on Instagram and connect with us there. And hopefully you subscribed or liked this conversation and subscribe to the page. So you can follow us here as well for the next notifications for upcoming sessions.
Yes, please do subscribe and put that notification bell on so you never miss one of our sessions.
Yes, yes, yes. Ping, ping, ping. Oh gosh. All right. Any
Have a
other
great night. What are you ready to say?
I wonder if there were any other things that we.
No, I don't think so. Nothing I can think of right now.
So we'll have more things coming up soon.
Yes, we'll have more updates, more announcements,
Yes.
some great surprises coming up.
Absolutely. All right. All right, girl. I'll see you in a bit.
Okay. All right. Bye, everyone.